Congratulations to Sustainable Brands Barcelona. I've been really looking forward to coming here, and so far listening in on the morning presentation, I have definitely not been disappointed yet. And I'm looking forward to our discussions this afternoon. So yes, I would like to take you on a journey for the next 20 minutes. But your mom and dad has probably told you never to travel with a stranger. So while you're doing your mental trip to the toilet and get ready and get something to eat mentally as well, I would like to tell you a bit about myself, just so you feel more at ease with the journey that we are going to. So I'm Laura, and my hometown is the city of Copenhagen. That is where I was born and raised, and I live there with my little daughter and my soon-to-be husband. And that's where I run the Sustainia organization from. Copenhagen is very much known for our bicycle culture. I don't own a car. I bike around with my daughter on the back. As I saw yesterday in Barcelona that a lot of moms and dads are now starting to bike around with their kids as well. And the bicycle culture has really increased here in Barcelona as well. So as a Copenhagen, I enjoy seeing that. Copenhagen or Denmark is also very well known for good-looking blondes and for always winning at least the number 2 on the most happy people on the planet. We are very happy and content people. Some of you may also know Copenhagen from the infamous COP15 back in 2009. And for those of you that have succeeded erasing that point in time from your memory, let me quickly recap. Because I was very much involved in the COP15, and I spent 3 years trying to do what I could with my team, mobilizing the international business community, trying to engage them in this event. I think this was the UN event that has been the most hyped ever. The expectations were enormous. And when December in Copenhagen came, what we saw was a complete collapse of negotiations. Leading up to the COP15, everyone and their mom suddenly had a climate strategy, and some of the speakers has talked a bit about that. There was a lot of greenwashing going on. A lot of companies calling themselves climate-friendly, CO2 neutral, green, whatever that means. But the good thing was that there was a lot of energized momentum leading up to the COP15. But the mental image of COP15 is pretty much like this. That was my mental image, and this is actually a picture taken from the last day of negotiations. And I remember walking around the Bella Center feeling so hopeless, so devastated. So we spent a couple of months figuring out what actually went wrong. And when the first kind of depression had left our bodies and we started to actually work again, we gathered a group of communication experts from all over the world and some companies around the same table, and we agreed that now we would give ourselves a year to figure out a new way of actually mobilizing and re-energizing this momentum. So we started to look at how we actually communicated about the greatest challenge of mankind. We looked at the words that we used in the months leading up to COP15, and these were the most common used words. Maybe not that inspiring or explanatory. And we looked at the media coverage that has been, and we had all adopted a very scientific language. So maybe no wonder that we didn't really succeed in creating the change that we wanted to. The way that we talk about these issues are very technical and not exactly inspiring or mobilizing larger masses to actually take a stand on this. We also started to look at what kind of images were used to communicate about this challenge. And what we saw was very, very devastating images. Climate change is definitely not a pleasant issue to be involved in. And everyone were communicating in very, very scary pictures. It was like seeing an apocalyptic horror movie. And then we expected people to be re-energized and excited and motivated about doing something about this. Take a few seconds and look at these images. What kind of emotions do they stir in you? Do you feel excited or motivated to do something about it? Not really, no. And what we figured out was that we had presented this gigantic problem to people and then expected them to change. But most people, when they look at images like these, they want to pretend that this has nothing to do with them. It's not really a problem that exists. Science has shown us that our minds simply cannot comprehend climate change. It's such a complex issue. And when you then communicate about it in very technical abbreviations and images like this, you won't see any change happening. What we did was we forgot to provide people with an alternative. We forgot to provide people with the solutions needed, their escape route from these scenarios. As I said, I have a little girl, and I don't want to pretend to her when she grows big enough to understand these issues that we don't have a problem. But I want to make her proud, and I want to make her empowered. I want to make her understand that she can actually do something about this, and that there's a lot of solutions out there. So what we did in this group that gave ourselves a year was that we wanted to provide a complete new narrative. We wanted to talk about these issues in a completely different manner. We wanted to inspire people. We wanted to start to look at what the sustainable solutions were actually looking like, and how are they improving your quality of life. How are they making your lives better, not worse? It's not about giving something up and having a poorer standard of life. It's about improving your quality of life. So we started to provide people with these images of sustainable solutions. And I remember one of the CEOs of a huge Nordic utility company that was in this alliance. He said, I have no problem communicating my own vision of where I want to take my company, but I have a huge problem explaining internally and externally what this sustainable future looks like. Where are we all heading with our sustainable solutions and technologies? How about we create a shared vision of where we actually want to be? So that's what we did. We created the vision of Sustainia. And Sustainia is a place, it's a destination that has implemented all the solutions that we have available today. It's not a futuristic utopia, it's something that you could actually create today because we have the solutions and we have the technologies. And that is where I would like to take you for the next few minutes. I hope you're now ready to leave. You feel a bit more safe in my company. If not, we'll take a drink afterwards. But for now, we'll go to this place, Sustainia Island. Sustainia Island is a microcosmos of the world that we live on today. We have the exact same challenges as we do on planet Earth. We have the same climate zones, we have the same difference in development level. Poor people, sad people, etc. are also on Sustainia. We have 4 megacities. That is, for example, Nordfjord is a microcosmos or a tiny version of a Northern European city. Westland is a merger of typical US grid cities, a merger of San Francisco and New York. We have small villages, and we have mid-sized cities. And I would like to take you a tour around Sustainia Island and show you how people there and how companies there are addressing challenges head-on with solutions that are actually creating a good return on investment, good profits, while also improving their quality of life. The first visit we'll make to is a solution that was inspired by the mining industry in Africa. The case with the mining industry in Africa is that a lot of workers there are treated very poorly. And the minerals that are taken from these mines are used to produce electronic goods and services. The smartphones that we all have contains 40 rare minerals. And we have a lot of smartphones on this planet. We have more active cell phones on this planet than we are human beings, and 1 in every 5 person owns a smartphone, so that's a lot of minerals. Fairphone has started to produce a phone from mines where workers are treated fairly, and where the smartphone is produced in a manner that is easy for you and I to repair once it's broken, so it has a long lifetime. You can disassemble it yourself. You can buy spare parts online. It's the most sustainable phone or smartphone in the world, and it has become extremely successful. Their customers are lining up, and you have to wait in line for months to actually get in on one of these smartphones. And again, they are providing an alternative to our iPhones that is produced in a very unsustainable manner, I have to tell you. The next stop we will make is a stop to a mid-sized city. Imagine an African city, because it was inspired by a woman living in Lagos, Nigeria, and she was fed up by the fact that only 40% of the garbage in her hometown of Lagos were collected. And of course, none of the garbage and waste were collected in the very poor neighborhoods. So what she did was employing a very low-tech technology, or solution, because it's not a technology. She employed a fleet of cargo bicycles to starting to collect the trash and the waste that were piling up in the poor areas of her hometown of Lagos. And she was empowering the local community. She was empowering them to actually start giving away their recyclables. Because in return, they got points on their phones that they could then return for household appliances or buying stuff they needed in the local grocery store. It has become quite successful, even though it's very, very low tech. And they launched on the market a year and a half ago and are now employing close to 100 people and are moving to other cities. But again, sustainable solutions and technologies doesn't have to be very high-tech. It can be very low-tech, engaging and empowering the local community. The next stop is to a company called Deso. And Deso was a very traditional carpet manufacturing company that were throwing away their carpets like a lot of other people. But they decided that they wanted to do something about this. They decided that they wanted to start producing using cradle-to-cradle certified principles. They did that, or started doing that, back in 2008. Some of you have probably heard this story. And since then, the market share has risen from 13% in 2008 to today, 27-28% of the market. And they, instead of having a product that you make using raw materials and you then dispose, they are producing their carpets in a way so they are reusing every fibers in the new products. And they have done what a lot of companies should do. They have turned their business models into one from a production company to a service company. So having that mind shift that you need to start leasing your products instead of buying them has become extremely successful for them. The next company we will visit is in Westland. And as I said in the beginning, they are from San Francisco, or inspired by San Francisco. And in San Francisco, the startup community is booming. And right now, the hottest trend is the sharing economy, or sharing economy solutions. We see Uber, Airbnb, a lot of those business models that are making a lot of money out of sharing stuff that you have yourself with other people. One of the examples are neighbor goods. We have a lot of things stored in our attics, basements, and garages. Perfectly good stuff, but we use them very rarely. Kingfisher has estimated that their power drills are used only 6 minutes per lifetime. Imagine if we started to sharing these items instead of having to own everything ourselves. I think with the millennial culture growing and starting to replace leadership around in companies, we will see a shift in that. Because it's definitely not cool to own a lot of stuff that you rarely use. It's a lot cooler to actually start sharing things. That was also the example we heard this morning with mud jeans. It's a lot more exciting to have things for a few months and then get something new in return. The next stop we will make is up north, and that is a company that is taking what most of us would consider as the worst trash imaginable. This is fish leftovers from fish factories on Iceland. Very smelly stuff. And Atlantic Leather takes the fish skins and use that to produce beautiful looking exotic leather. The fashion company Dior has integrated that in their production line, and so has Nike and Puma. Again, taking something that others consider trash and transforming it into something that has a good business model and looks beautiful. The last stop we will make on our tour around Sustainia Island is to a company that is called Air Carbon. On Sustainia Island, they don't have this problem. They don't have a lot of plastic flowing around in their oceans and rivers. Each year we produce almost 300 billion tons of plastic, and a lot of it are going to our ocean and our rivers, and you can even find plastic in our own bodies. It's a huge problem, and the way we produce plastic is extremely polluting. Air Carbon is sequestering carbon emissions before they go into the atmosphere, and using that air carbon material to replace oil in plastic production means that you can now produce plastic that can compete on price and performance, but does not use oil, and is carbon negative. It's not only carbon neutral, it's actually carbon negative, because it prevents some of the carbon that would have gone to the atmosphere to actually go there. And right now, air carbon is used by companies like Dell to replace their plastic in manufacturing. And as I said, it can completely compete on price and performance. And their own analysis, and I'm stressing own because it hasn't been verified, but their own analysis is stressing that if 63% of the plastic we use today were replaced by this material, we would stabilize climate change by 2050. That's quite impressive. This was 6 stops around Sustainia Island, but I could have been talking for days to tell you more about these solutions, because there are a wealth of sustainable solutions out there. And from the beginning of my talk, I talked a lot about what we failed leading up to COP15. And I think another failure was that we lacked a focus on the sustainable solutions that are already out there driving the change that we need. It's now been 6 years since COP15, and I think I'm over it now, but I think a lot of things have changed, and we see a rise in sustainable business models. Sustainia 100 is taking it upon ourselves to focus on these sustainable business models. So each year we scout the market for the great new innovative solutions that are out there, and we launched them in a portfolio in June called the Sustainia 100. We tap into a global community getting these solutions and combine it with our own research. Sustainia 100 solutions are solutions that can live up to the triple bottom line, but is also scalable and ready to be implemented. So it's solutions that have already proven their potential in the market. And what I find quite fascinating is that we are soon to launch the 4th edition. When we launched the 2004 edition, it reached an audience of 110 million people within the first week. There's a massive interest in sustainable solutions and technologies right now, and we're definitely experiencing that in our organization. This previous edition has now reached an audience of 160 million people total since we launched the last time. That's a lot of people, and that makes me really, really optimistic. It also makes me really optimistic about the next COP that will happen soon in Paris. So that means that we now sit on a database of almost 4,000 solutions that are covering 10 different sectors. Everything from the food we eat, the homes we live in, our transportation system, also up to education. And there are 6 key trends from this database. And one of them is definitely circular economy. 25% of our database are solutions that are addressing the circular economy. Solutions and companies and technologies that are completely redefining their value chain and are getting away from the linear production of taking raw materials, produce a product and dispose it, but instead thinking from the design process, how can we actually reuse, repurpose, upcycle, even biodegrade all of our products? And these are successful business models, let me tell you. So those of you that haven't yet caught on to this trend, now is definitely the time. We've heard a lot of, or some of the speakers talk about rethinking consumer behavior, responsible supply chains. And we definitely have a lot of solutions as well that address this problem, because it is difficult for a company like Patagonia to completely control their supply chain. It is difficult for a lot of, especially companies within the fashion industry. So how can we prevent another Rana Plaza, for example, by allowing people on the ground to, in an anonymous way, for example, to report back when they see things that are not right? The sharing economy is also a huge trend. Water efficiency is definitely something that we see a lot. Levi's were among the previous year's Sustainia 100, but we see a lot of companies that are slowly getting that this is an area that need to address. Water is a scarce resource, but so is a lot of other raw materials and stuff that we have from nature that we can't rely on going forward. Big data and data analytics, I could talk for days about this, but my time is running low. But there's a lot of fascinating solutions, and I will encourage you to dig in on more of these solutions if you're interested. We are more than happy to share this. And we are more than happy to provide a new narrative leading up to COP21, a narrative that is a bit more inspiring, focus more on the sustainable, successful business models, providing business leaders with the arguments for change that make sense in a business context, and it's not just claiming to be green for whatever reason. So I'm optimistic about the future, excited to be here as well and learning a lot from all of you guys. And thank you so much for letting me share a bit of the stuff and solutions that we find on Sustainia Island. So let's wake these guys up. Let's make them aware that we have the solutions that are needed to make the change we need to see happening. Thank you so much.